Welcome back. I may not be the best chess player, but according to this knowledgeable and highly accurate coffee mug, I am the best dad. So to all you other dads out there, you gave it your best shot. Thanks for trying. Better luck next time. If you haven't guessed by the title up there in the upper right corner, I'm going to play a classical game on camera today. Not a 90-minute classical game, but what Lichess calls a classical chess game, which is 30 minutes. To my knowledge, that's not a time control that's available on chess.com. They do have 30-minute games, but it's counted as rapid, and I'm not going to play one of these games and, hurt my rapid score, so I'm going to do it on Lichess. But first, I'm going to very briefly show you what happened in the last two classical games. Yesterday, I played one on camera, and the day before, I played one on camera. Both of those games were really frustrating, and so those videos are gone. I ended up, they weren't good videos, so there's no point in putting them on YouTube. But in the game 2 days ago, this right here is the move where I lost the game. And during the analysis, that was a little difficult for me to process the fact that right here, when I traded queens, that was it. I never regained any advantage in the game, and my opponent just played well to the end. And that's all it took. Now, supposedly, I'm slightly ahead right here, despite my opponent being up a pawn. And according to Stockfish, that's because I need to play f4, or I could keep it even by playing bishop to a3. And as you can see, I'm not as ahead once the engine runs. It's not 0.6, it's only 0.3. But we're close to even. I have a very slight edge. If only I'll play one of these two moves. And I think I understand f4 a little bit better than the bishop to a3. That one, I have no idea what that's doing. And it says if I played bishop to a3, then I could expect my opponent to long castle. But they very clearly took back here. I think I just took with the pawn there. They took back here with the intent of trading queens. I don't think they would have long castled if I had played this. I think they would have traded queens. That was their whole idea. And somehow that would have worked out okay for me. I guess that's because this pawn's hanging. If I went there and they took my queen and I took back, then how would they protect that pawn? I guess they could just move their king up or long castle where their rook would be protecting the pawn, but somehow I would be ahead or very close to even. And if I played f4, I think I understand that, my bishop's attacking the queen. But again, I'm pretty sure they would just take my queen because that's the whole reason they put it there. And then I would have to take back. And then I guess after I took back, I don't know what I would expect them to do. They have this pawn hanging down here because I've just revealed my bishop's attack on it. And my rook would be pointed at this pawn here. So I think I understand, but at best, I'm just going to get back the pawn that I'm down right now. So anyway, I took their queen, which is the whole reason I thought they moved theirs to d5. So I thought we were trading queens, and I traded queens, and I never regained the advantage after this. That was pretty frustrating. This was also the game where later on it called two of my moves blunders here. And in the little short that I posted, a couple of you suggested in the comments that's because I was using a weaker engine. But I don't know how to change the engine that runs the, the post-game analysis that comes up with these designators of blunders. I know how to change the engine right here to change it from the 7 megabyte to 40 or 70, which I would have to stop the recording software to run that. But as far as I know, changing that would only change the lines that I'm given here. I'm not sure, but that's what I thought. But maybe it will also change, the engine that runs through here, and then the post-game analysis would take a lot longer. Regardless, I got pretty frustrated when doing the analysis of this, as that little clip shows that was on a couple of days ago. Right here, it was mate in 7, but I went the wrong way, which changed it to a mate in 6, and I couldn't understand how that could have been counted as a blunder to, one move shorter to mate. Shouldn't have been counted as a blunder. And then later here, I have two moves that are rated equally, mate in 4, either way, and I made one of them, and it counted them as a blunder. And in the game I played yesterday, my opponent didn't make any mistakes or blunders, and I never had any advantage. But right here is where my opponent gained the advantage for good. I played bishop to g7 thinking I was about to castle. And when I played that, it went to 1.2, so I don't think that should have been counted as inaccurate. It should have been at least a mistake. Then when you turn on the engine, it's actually not 1.2, but it's still a pretty significant gain here if my opponent plays queen to b3. I guess aiming for that pawn. And it says I wouldn't make no move to protect it. I would just get my knight out. But then when my opponent checked me, it's, it comes a little bit closer to even, but I had to block knight to c6 or just move the king over, according to Stockfish here. But I played knight to d7, which loses this pawn, and that's not even their best move, but they took it, and they're still very slightly ahead, and here I castled. And that was the first move that was counted as a mistake to me, but I had to play bishop to e4 here, I guess targeting both of those. And it says if I did that, they would go ahead and take this knight, and I would take back, and then they would drop this knight back here to guard that g2 pawn, and I don't know why that's so brilliant, because we did a 3-point piece trade here, 3 points each, right? And then my bishop's over here doing nothing because they're guarding that pawn. So I don't understand that either. And because I'm a glutton for punishment, I'm going to go ahead and play another one today, right now. I'm going to go back to the homepage. I'm going to select 30 plus 0 and see if we get paired, and I will do my best. And And I'll try not to get, discouraged and rattled like I did in the previous 2 games. And maybe, we can make something of this. All right, that wasn't too long of a wait before getting paired. My opponent has 30 seconds to make their first move, so I'll give them some time to think about that. Okay, they took most of their time and they have played e4. So I have been trying to learn the French. This is as good a place as any to practice the French defense. I know that's the first move of it. Oh, they've played f4. Well, that wasn't one of the moves that I studied for. But I do know that when people play f4 against me in the Caro-Kann, I lose 95% of those games. So maybe that'll happen here in the French. What am I supposed to do about that? Am I still supposed to play d5? I don't know. Because then they're going to push this forward. I have no idea. I'm going to play d5 and already move 2. I'm pretty sure I've lost because, like I said, when people play that in the Caro-Kann, the engine always thinks it's bad, but in my experience, it wins, and that's why people keep doing it. All right. That seems like a joke to me now. It looks like my opponent is just playing games. Oh, wait, we are just playing a game. Okay. Again, I said I was going to try not to get rattled. I have lots of time. I have choices like I can take this pawn, or I can do what I often do in the French, which is play c5, but I've never encountered this before, so I don't know. I can also check them now, but I think they would block that with the pawn. Well, it's either taking that or playing c5. I'm going to play c5 because I really don't know. If they take there, I've got that. If they take here, oh, they pushed it forward. Okay. Well, let's take that one then. And now they can check me, or they can take back that pawn and I'll get this knight out. Now they can't check me, but they can pin the knight with their light squared bishop. So I can't take their queen. Yeah, they did. Okay. Well, at least I expected that. Now I can check them, but that's pretty easy to, to block with the knight. I don't think they would block with the bishop because then I would take this bishop. But if I checked and they blocked with the knight, then what's my queen doing there? I can also develop my light squared bishop, so that frees up my knight to take their queen. But I assume they would trade their bishop for the knight at that point. But let's find out. That's got to be an okay move. Now I assume at this point they're going to move their queen because, my knight isn't pinned anymore. They're either going to move the queen or take the knight. Those are the only 2 moves that make sense to me. But I don't know where they'll move the queen. They might just put it over here, to add some extra pressure that way. Or they might take it back. But if they do anything else besides take the knight or move their queen, that's my next move. It's got to be one of those 2, surely. Oh, they did move the queen over there. I shouldn't be worried about that, should I? Also, let's see. I could check now, protected by the knight, and then I think they would have to take. And then when I took back with the knight, then they would get my bishop, and I'd have to move my king at that point. So that's not a good plan. I could force the bishop trade as well. The bishop trading for that. And also get this knight out, aiming for over there. I don't know why I wouldn't do that. Let's go ahead and do that. Aiming to get this knight over here to f5 and see what they do. They might decide it's time to come charging through here, or they might have just moved the queen to safety, and they'll develop another piece possibly. Might be time to get, oh, I thought they were going to want to get this knight out to castle, but no. Well, I wanted to go to f5, but now I can't for the life of me remember why I wanted to go to f5. Looks like they could just challenge it with a pawn, but they probably won't. What else is there? Where else could it go from there? Here, I guess, but the bishop's guarding that, their queen's guarding that, so maybe that's not the best plan. It is an extra defender. Maybe I should try to fianchetto this bishop so I could castle over here. Then what happens if they push this pawn? I guess I just take. You know what? Really not sure. Again, really thrown off by the f4. Oh, they did that fast. They must have been planning this. Oh, they're aiming for checkmate. Is there anything I can do about that? Oh, wow. Okay. What can I do about that? Oh, I have to move this knight to f5, and then my bishop's guarding that square. That's going to be what I have to do now. Okay, that's what we're doing. I'm pretty sure that was my only choice. There might have been something else, but now I have 2 pieces guarding that square, whereas before I had no pieces guarding that square. And even if I end up having to move the knight because of something like this, I still have the bishop guarding that square. d6. Otherwise, they would have had a smothered mate. Oh, they went over there. Oh, right. Well, I have to move the king, I think. I could take with my queen, but that seems ridiculous. But those are, I'm pretty sure, my only 2 legal moves is moving the king or taking with the queen. So I'm going to move the king, I guess. Let's do it. Okay. Well, I only have a couple of legal moves here. It's either blocking with the knight, which seems bad because then that'll be checkmate, or blocking with the knight here. So it looks like it's going to be checkmate into, as far as I can tell. Let's do that, and then they'll take it, and then I'll block here, and that's checkmate. Okay. Well, let's take a look at the analysis board and see where I went wrong. I'm not gonna get, upset like I did the last couple of days, but clearly I went wrong somewhere. C5 was a mistake. It says that right off the bat, but we were still close to even then, so it was something else. All right, well, this fantastic chart down here says I had 31% accuracy, which is the lowest in a long time for me. But it looks like one move right here. That's the only move that made a difference. I mean, that's the move that decided the game, so I should look at that. But I also want to look at the opening because what do I do when they play f4? Let's turn this on. I played the French defense, and according to this opening book, what's the chances of them playing f4 here? Okay, it is the 5th most common move among the Lichess Players database. For Masters, it's also there. It has happened in Master games, but it's far less common. But in Lichess, it's the 5th most common move. I can expect it about 5% of the time, so 1 out of every 20 games. Well, we learned something. And once that happens, most Lichess players respond with d5. And that's also what Stockfish would play. Okay, so I decided correctly there. And here I can expect e5. I did expect e5, but that's not what they played. Stockfish might play e5 or it might play d3. But the engine counted as a mistake when they played d4, and that's because I should have taken this pawn. And c5 was my next best move, but it wasn't nearly as good, which is why it was counted as a mistake. Takes us back to even. I'm not going to be too worried about me playing c5 here, because it still keeps us at about even, and this is going to be such a small percentage of the games that I play. I'm going to say less than 1 of 100, because remember, if we back up here, the f4 is only 5% of Lichess players, and I would probably play d5 here. So we're at 1 out of every 20 games in the French, but here, playing d5 is not even very common at all. Sorry, d4, 1%. So 1% of the 5%. So there's no point in me memorizing this because it's going to be so rare. And me playing c5 takes us back close to even. That's good enough for me. For now anyway. But my second, my other choice was taking the pawn. So I think either way I would come out okay from here. But it's possible that my opponent is playing this with a plan, hoping that I would fall into the trap that I fell into. Because after this, it says what I should have played was knight to h6 or queen to b6. And I'm guessing the reason I should have played queen to b6 is to stave off that check. Now the engine expects no matter which one of those that I played that they would play knight to f3 next. Well, as you saw, my opponent, I don't think ever played knight to f3, did they? So when I took here, that took us to even. They took back as I expected, and it says knight to d7 here, not knight to c6. But knight to c6 is second best. Okay, so I don't feel bad about that. That's an inaccuracy for some reason. I should have immediately played bishop to d7, and I did. So I'm doing fine here. My opponent spent over a minute and played that. That was the first time that they thought in this game. They played all these other moves fairly quickly, but here they took a minute and a half almost to line that up. And I wondered about that. I should have immediately gone for the bishop and forced that little trade there. Then they would have had to move the queen again, and I would have been fine. But instead, I started locking myself up by playing this, but I'm still ahead. And that was counted as a mistake by the engine. I'm up -3 if I'll play a6 now. But I didn't. I played there. I'm still ahead. Oh, I know what's wrong with that. I did. Oh my. Okay. Wow. Why didn't I take it? Oh my goodness. Okay, that's an elementary level blunder. I don't know why I didn't see that during the game. It wasn't a trick or a trap. It was just me being completely brain shut down, I guess. So discouraged and rattled by those last 2 games yesterday that I just completely didn't even notice I could just take that knight. I saw the threat of checkmate and I reacted poorly. And when they played this, I had to give up my queen. But the fact that I didn't give up my queen means they have a mate in 3, it's forced. I was correct that knight to b4 was the best move, and then I had to block with this knight, and that's mate. So 1 move. I just missed a free piece. Well, fortunately, this video is a lot shorter than the last 2 that I made and have now deleted, and now you've got the little bits of all of them in this one video. If I've learned anything from these last 3 attempts here, including this one that I will actually upload, what I've learned is I'm not going to play 30-minute games anymore. I said that in the video yesterday, but then once I decided to delete that video and make this one, thought I'll give it one more chance. But the third time's the charm. 30-minute games are not for me. I do appreciate you spending your time here, and I appreciate all the helpful comments, including the ones about changing the level of Stockfish. I'm going to fiddle around with that. I just know that if I turn on the stronger engine while I'm recording it, it'll bog stuff down seriously. So I'm going to fiddle with that while I'm not recording and, see if it changes how strong that post-game analysis is. And by that, I'm talking about this graph and this chart down here, like that other game where it called that 1 king move a blunder, even though it was just as good as the other possible legal move. I don't know if it will affect the strength of that part or not, or if it'll only affect the lines that are shown up here on the upper right. But I'm going to play around with it. I appreciate the suggestions, and I'll see you next time.